Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert,
And Ryan.
and today we're going to be discussing the newly released episode of, new series.
Episodes.
Yeah, episodes.
And
New
new
series
series.
on Disney Plus, The Bad Batch. It just came out. We're going to talk about it.
Episodes 1 and 2 because they both came out this week.
Yeah, literally, was super happy and cool that it came out on Tuesday, and then they just decided to be like, bam, it's coming out yesterday too, and now it's this morning, and we were going to do the podcast about just the first one, but I had to really quickly watch the second one right before this, so
Yeah. So we're going to put them both together.
yeah, we're just going to talk about both of them because
So what are your first impressions on this new season of Star Wars The Clone Wars?
I actually really liked the first episode. The second episode was good, but I just think the first episode really offered us sort of a lot more.
It was a longer episode.
Yeah, it was a longer episode, but a lot more interesting things happened in the first episode, whereas the next episode was kind of just, a continuation of the story that, was presented there. So, but yeah, I really like the series where it's going so far. The animation, I want to say is just to talk about Clone Wars, right? I almost didn't even watch Clone Wars. I actually had to force myself to get through the first two seasons because I thought the animation was so terrible and it was just a little kid show.
Yeah,
right?
when I was a kid, I actively thought that show had bad animation, and it did in its first two seasons.
Yeah.
And it's still the same animation style, but
It's
markedly improved.
Yeah, it's just better. But now it's even, I really notice how much even more better is.
Yeah.
More better.
More better.
More better, right. Especially in the second episode when the character Omega picks up dirt and is like dropping, and you can see like these particles of dust. And I was like, wow, okay, this is this is pretty solid.
I actually wanted to point out that I find Omega's facial, like the way that they animate her face in general, is I could tell that there's a marked improvement in quality compared with like the kind of faces you may have seen like Ahsoka making for comparison.
Yeah. So, but yeah, overall first impression, I'm enjoying it. Looks good.
Yeah.
Look forward to where it goes. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I like it. I think it has a very promising start, and I'm very, very excited to have more Star Wars.
Yeah. All right, so let's do like a quick little recap. So first episode, we have essentially, the episode is titled Aftermath, and it is what immediately follows the events of not only the end of Clone Wars, but the end of what's that called? The third movie?
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it is Revenge of the Sith. Okay, I was thinking of it in my head, but it was so close to Return of the Jedi. I don't know why I was getting it mixed up. But yeah, also the end of the events of Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, the Sith. What is wrong with me? But yeah, immediately following those events, we have sort of the end of the war and the seizing of power of Palpatine, and we have the return of we have the Bad Batch showing up on a planet that's in the middle of battle.
Yeah, trying to take down some of Grievous's troops, but little did they know, Grievous wasn't there. He was gone. He got Obi-Wan killed.
Yeah, and we get to be present for another sort of in the moment effect of Order 66 being perpetrated, where a Jedi and her Padawan are
Jedi Master Depa Billaba and her Padawan.
Yeah, they are. The Jedi Master is taken down and killed by a force of clones, and the Padawan begins to escape. The Padawan had this sort of relation with the Bad Batch, who arrive and kind of like help out the troops and take down like a separatist force that was pinning them down.
But then he also saw the clones kill his master.
Yeah, so he automatically didn't trust them, was running from them. Hunter was trying to get him to like, hey, we don't, we're not going to do anything to you. But Crosshair was sort of determined to take him down. It would seem, he was saying good soldiers follow orders, and apparently they had an order to take him down. So, and so, this doesn't sit quite right with Hunter. Hunter basically lets him get away. Crosshair kind of thinks there's something, went wrong there, and that he let him get away.
Do you want to make the note on the Padawan that got away here?
The note on the Padawan that got away?
Caleb Doom.
Is it Caleb?
Caleb is the name of the Padawan who grows up to be Caden.
Right. Oh, yeah. See, okay. Yeah. See.
I was suspicious and I Googled it.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so. Didn't Google it, but I had this feeling. I was like, huh.
If you're not familiar with the show Rebels, he grows up to be a Jedi who trains another Padawan.
Yeah, it's been so long since I saw the first season, I forgot that his name was originally Caleb and that it was different later. So
yeah, but Order 66 happens. He escapes, presumably to go be in Rebels.
Yeah, to go grow up and exist.
Maybe he'll show up again.
Yeah, he escapes and they return. The Bad Batch are kind of confused about what's going on. They kind of think it's a little weird that like they killed the Jedi and everything. They go back to Camino, and we get them all assembled. Where we also have we have them assembled, and they introduce a new character, Omega, who seems to be a small child. That later we're going to find out she's a clone. She's a defective clone. I don't know what I'm not sure what the defect is, other than I guess she's a girl. Like,
I mean, they altered the genetics and they altered the Y chromosome.
Yeah. So, but we meet Omega, who's this, just a genial little child,
a little girl with a
Australian accent.
Yeah, little Kiwi.
I'm Omega. And we get them, and then we have a big assemblage later where the Emperor's like, we have taken over the Empire. Everything is good. Blah, blah, blah. Like, man, dark side.
The new galactic empire.
Yeah. And all the clones are like cheering it on and like, yeah. And the Bad Batch is like, I don't know about this.
Except Crosshair, who's just like following orders.
Yeah. We get the episode continuing on.
They're on Camino, and then Admiral Tarkin arrives.
Yeah, and he's basically like, I don't know about these clones. Like, I don't know if they're effective. I think, they're expensive. Like, I'd rather just draft people. The Kaminoans say, like, well, they're significantly better and they're worth their price. Tarkin wants a test. So they picked, he sees the Bad Batch, I think, because Bad Batch, they get into like a fight in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
Kind of display their skills a little bit. So Tarkin picks them, put them in a practice combat, and they
with live rounds.
Yeah,
but they succeed because they're the shit.
Yeah, so and they demonstrate that they are superior. So Tarkin, he understands that they have like a track of disobedience, but he likes that they are exceptional. So he decides to kind of test them and send them on a mission to see if they are loyal to the Empire. And they get sent to a planet where they are supposed to take down some insurgents, I believe it is.
Yeah. They're under the impression that it's going to be droids. They're told that it's separatist forces. Yeah.
And when they get there, it is not droids. It is not separatist forces at all. It is previously Republic forces, that it's Saw Gerrera's group, which Saw Gerrera from Rogue One and from Clone Wars and from Rebels. Yeah. I think he's in all those things, and he's like, no, this is clearly not, it's literally women and children and like a few kind of sort of like branch off forces. And they're like, hey, there's something wrong going on here. And like, whatever's going on, it's not right. So, you guys can turn around, you guys can try to fight us or, whatever you want to do. But clearly these are just men, women, and children. And everybody's basically like, yeah, this is a little fishy. Everybody still thinks it is, especially Hunter.
Except Crosshair, who's just like, we should have executed them.
Yeah, we should have done that. Like, why are we doing this? And we keep seeing this going back and forth between Crosshair and Hunter, because Hunter clearly has a strong moral compass, and he is like, this is not right. I don't know what's going on, but we can't do this. Crosshair's like, we need to just follow orders. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so we get, there is also a probe droid, I think it was, that was sort of watching them.
Yeah, and they take it out.
Yeah, and they take it out. So clearly the, Tarkin or the Kaminoans or somebody, was
They're seeing that they
watching
failed
them.
their mission.
Yeah, that they did not follow it and that they were, talking with Saw Gerrera and everything. So they get in the ship, head back to Kaminoa.
Camino.
Yeah.
So the reason they go back to Camino is because at this point they're like fishy on the intent of this new empire and Tarkin especially, but Hunter wants to go back for Omega because Tech reveals to them that she was the 5th genetic defect clone,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, I guess is supposed to be a surprise in that moment.
Yeah, I was not surprised by it, but I guess, to them, whatever. And I also, they're definitely foreshadowing, or they're giving us indication that there's like some kind of connection or something special about Omega. Like, I think a connection between her and Hunter. I have a theory that it's like that her like direct code is like taken from Hunter's or something, like, so she has like an enhanced senses kind of thing too, and so like in some ways, even though they're all clones, she's like more closely related to him, maybe. Like,
I don't know if it's that, but
because she also, so as of the episode, they arrive at Camino. It's like an empty hangar. They go in there and bam, they are ambushed, and a bunch of the what is it, like the Imperial Guard, I think, because it's like the red clone troopers, the ones that have like red armor.
Yeah.
They like, surprise them and capture them and take them and throw them in jail, along with Omega. And they throw them all in this brig, and basically the Bad Batch, they hatch a little plot to get out.
First, Crosshair is taken out because, and he's taken to go be analyzed, and it's revealed, which another thing that I think is sort of foreshadowed, that his inhibitor chip is working not as well as a reg clone's inhibitor chip should, but it's working better than any of the other members of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And so he's getting compelled by Order 66 more than the others.
Yeah, and we did see there was a couple moments where they kind of show that Crosshair, he's like kind of battling against Hunter, but like it shows him like sitting down, like grabbing his head, and like almost this look of like he's trying to like reconcile or fight with or struggle against whatever he's feeling or doing.
Yeah.
And but they take him and they analyze him and they say, all right, let's turn that inhibitor chip like full up. And that's when we cut back to them in the brig, and they're hatching a plan to get out. And basically they end up escaping. But one thing I want to touch on is that so this idea I had about Omega having some kind of connection to Hunter, right? So Hunter's thing, like his special thing, is enhanced senses, right? That's why he's Hunter. When Omega's sitting there with Crosshair, she puts her hand on his shoulder and says to him, she says, like, I understand, why you're going to do what you're going to do, or something along the, again, I'm paraphrasing, but she has this weird connection, like, hey, it's okay how you're feeling, and I understand, like, why you're going to do what you're going to do, or something like that. And I was like, what is this? Like, this is like...
Yeah, I do get the sense that she has some, like, enhanced intuition or something.
Or, my other theory is she's force sensitive.
Bruh.
And that's what I'm thinking, because I was like, how could she know, like, her picking up, she showed that she's kind of picked up on emotions a little bit, but also like her saying, "What, it's okay that you're about to do what you're going to do." Like, that's straight up her basically telling the future before anything happened, before they came to pick him up. And so I'm thinking it's either force sensitivity or she's related to Hunter, and like it's an enhanced senses and something like that.
I like force sensitivity. That would be really cool. I don't know how they would genetically do that unless they got the midichlorian gene found.
Exactly. I think that's why they have her, and why they were growing her. They were trying to see if they could replicate force sensitivity, perhaps.
And maybe then they want her back because maybe it could be lost with her.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that she'll be like a big deal, because of that.
I like that. But anyway, so as you were saying, they make a plan. They get out of their cell and they start to make a break for it. And they say, "Oh, let's go grab Crosshair." But then
Yeah, while they're in this hangar, they've gotten all their equipment and they're about to get on the plane, but I can't remember who it is, whether it's Hunter or somebody. They're like, we have to go back and get Crosshair, and bam, the hangar doors open and it's a whole squad of troops led by Crosshair, and he's like, you should have like followed orders, like blah blah blah. And he basically is like, all right, take him down, and he's they engage with them and try to take them all out, and
he is trying to take out his
brothers, like and man, it's kind of like there's some feels like he shoots Wrecker like straight bam, like knocks him down, and it's so funny that it's like I get it, they're the Bad Batch, right? Like they're better, they're obviously our protagonists and stuff, but it's like this is the second time we see Wrecker get shot, and I've never seen a clone in any of the things get shot and not die. Like usually it's like, get shot anywhere, dead, laser, dead, explosion. Like their armor usually doesn't work very well, but apparently, like I don't know if Wrecker's special or we're resistant or something.
He is special.
Yeah, he is special.
He's a special guy.
He's a special boy.
But they make the escape.
Yeah, they make the escape and they get out of there.
And then we're left with this possibly season arc, maybe series arc of how Crosshair is gonna reconcile with the rest of his batch, or maybe he won't. Maybe he'll stay inhibited.
Yeah, I think that that's like probably one of the coolest things for what they've set up for the series so far. So if I want to take a couple thoughts on this episode right here, one, I love that we are getting this glimpse into all these things, all these after effects of the war, that we're seeing like what kind of happens to the clones right after. Like, I mean, we know that Order 66, they take over, but what exactly really does happen to them? Them being such a big deal in the Clone Wars and everything. It's cool and interesting to see how that develops. I love that they are setting up this Crosshair, like one of your men like turns against you kind of thing. And like Crosshair being like, he's the sharpshooter. He's like deadly, he's the, and it's, I think it's just,
it makes him a threat.
Yeah. He's a real threat. Like, I mean, and he doesn't even have to get close. Like he can just take his men, like if he gets his sights on his the Bad Batch, like he could take him out without them knowing.
Yeah.
And so that makes it extra dangerous. And so I think we're going to get to see a lot of interesting conflict between that, them having like a loyalty to him and how they can maybe save him, because we'll see in the second episode, they get an indication about the inhibitor chip. So I think hopefully there's going to be an attempt or something to rescue him. And I'd like to see how that turns out, whether they do end up doing it, or maybe it's something even, I think it'd be even more dramatic if it ends up where in their attempt to save him, like they just fail and like he kills one of them, or someone has to, like Hunter sacrifices himself to save Crosshair or something. I don't know. There's just a lot of interesting conflict, and I'm really interested to see how that develops. And they just set up this thing with Omega, and again, I think she might be force sensitive, and it'll be interesting to see that too. So
yeah, this first episode does a really good job at just setting up, like, because you sort of go into this and you're just like, okay, so we're gonna see more of the time that's already, we basically know what's gonna happen, like the Empire's taking over and now the rebellion's gonna start. But I think this episode really made me sort of recognize, and the second episode more so, but we'll get into that, how much of a change that is to go from the Republic as it was to the Empire it becomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I guess that kind of leads us into episode 2. And Brian, if you want to take over.
All right. So episode 2, the Bad Batch and Omega. So at the end of the episode 1, they say, oh, we've got a friend that we can go to. And we begin this episode with the Bad Batch and Omega arriving on Seleucami. I can't remember exactly how that's pronounced, where they're meeting up with a clone deserter, Cut, who I believe it's in a fairly early episode of the Clone Wars, right?
Yeah, like I almost barely remembered that it was an episode, but I was like, oh no, this was I remember this episode now. Like, yeah, like he's a deserter clone.
Yeah, what's interesting is that in that episode, it was Rex and like his people meeting this clone deserter, but apparently the Bad Batch also has a relationship with this guy.
Yeah. So
because I don't know, I don't think that was established prior to this.
mhm.
But I remember watching that episode in the Clone Wars and thinking this guy's going to come back at some point.
Yeah.
Like this is too interesting a concept for him to just be forgotten about.
Mhm.
And here he is.
Yep.
Yeah, they arrive and meet up with the family and stuff, but the family wants to leave because instead of drawing troops back now that the war is over, there's almost like an increased military presence now than there was before, which this is what I was sort of getting at, where you're seeing the change into the Empire. This episode really gears into it because we're seeing the Empire basically confiscating ships to register them and requiring that people get a chain code so that they can register people. And that's the sort of stuff that's just like, oh, that's scary.
Mhm. Yeah, see, it seems scary, but this is an interesting and when it is interesting to see how the Empire is this transition, but
it's scary because we know what the Empire is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. We know now as the audience, we know that the Empire is bad, like it's read by a bad guy, but there's always this interesting, I've talked with a couple of my friends that are really into Star Wars, Michael and Olivia, a lot, and they've read some of the books, and they talk about how the thing is that like to some people living in the Empire, it's basically just regular-ish life, things aren't that much different. And if you look at it in the context of it, like don't assume that the new Empire is necessarily evil. You think like, well, it's not strange necessarily that they would be like, all right, hey, we're changing over to a new currency, right? Like, but your old credits, they all get to be the new credits. And hey, we just need identification for everybody now, right?
Yeah,
like
that way we can identify criminals.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like they want to make sure, now the thought was like, well, where are these criminals at, right? Like, what do you mean criminals? What? But I mean, again, this is just a new order, right? Hey, we can make you safer by doing these things, and this is just how things are going to work now, right? It's no different. Everything should be fine, and no problems, right? We see that the context of Star Wars is always the Empire is bad, right? So even though it's like it doesn't make it, overtly bad, it does like give us moments where there's like a guy trying to get on the transport ship. And he's like, I booked on this transport. And they're like, no chain code, you can't get on. They like shove him to the ground. And they're like, oh, dirty clones. Now they're bad guys because it's the Empire and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it's it's interesting to see how we're seeing this develop, and definitely we're always on the side of the good guys, so it seems bad, but I like to think, like this isn't necessarily inherently bad. Like them wanting IDs and transferring over credit and currency is not necessarily a bad thing.
But in the scenario with Cut, it is a bad thing because he can't go register for a chain code because he is a clone and he will be found out as a deserter.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't leave the planet with his family without getting a chain code.
Mm-hmm. Which I do want to say, the Bad Batch, Hunter originally offers to give him a ride, right? And I understand his point when he says, he's like, well, you guys are wanted criminals, so that's a little bit too much heat and stuff. But I was like, okay, so instead you guys are going to go through this like crazy plot on the planet where you're still at, as opposed to just getting on the ship, flying away, and then going to the nearest planet and dropping them off and then getting a troop transport or something. I don't know.
But then it'll probably be the same issue.
Yeah, I guess
they'll
so.
need chain codes at that new planet.
Yeah.
Or they're outside of Empire territory and then they'll be criminals.
Yeah. So I guess that makes a fair point. So, but nonetheless, they go,
Tech manages to hatch a plan to figure out the chain codes and basically break in to find a way into the Empire base, their place where they're taking the ships to.
Yeah, the impound lot.
Impound, that's the word I was looking for. And so he decides to basically call in their ship to be impounded, which he was unaware had Omega on the ship at the time. And Omega had just basically been faced with like a threat of like a wild animal that like almost got her. Yeah,
that led her to kind of just want to go be alone, sort of, I guess,
and this led Hunter to think about, well, maybe she's not safe with us. We should leave her with the family, with Cut and his family.
Yeah. Cut displays when after like the animal, they scare the animal off and it doesn't, get her. She's a little bit distraught, and Hunter, reacts like, what were you doing? Like, da, da, da. And Cut clearly displays, that he is a father and he understands that like this, yeah, you gotta be gentle with kids and stuff, and like treats her a little more kindly. And I think, yeah, in that moment, Hunter seeing, he's like, I don't know if I should even have her. Like, this isn't what's best for her to come around with us. Like, he should stay with, clearly she'd be happier here. So
yeah, so he decides in this moment that it'd probably be best for her to not be there. But then, surprise, surprise, she gets into the impound because she was on the ship when Tech calls it in, and so she gets caught up with that plan. And as opposed to being a liability to them, like, oh, they have to protect her, she's the one that ends up getting the chain codes out. She's the one that basically is the reason that Cut and his family are able to get off the planet. I mean, Tech and Echo are able to do their jobs in getting the chain codes and getting them redesigned to work for the family, but she's a part of basically the batch in a way. She helps to get the job done.
mm-hmm.
And when she's basically asked by Hunter, or told by Hunter, that she has to go off and be with Cut and his family, she sneaks away and decides to stay with them because that's who she wants to be with. She chose to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want the family life. She wanted them.
Yep. And so we, Cut and his family get past the guards, their chain codes work, and we see them basically make their way to the shuttle, where for a moment one of the clones almost mechanizes him, but fortunately he's distracted and pulled away because there's a disturbance and they need reinforcements over at the impound lot.
Yeah, the impound lot goes from stealth mission to
just blasting our way out.
Yeah,
as it usually does.
And Wrecker shows up and he's just like, oh, I love this one moment where he is confronted by 3 clone troopers and he's like, oh, it's in this hand. No, it's in this hand. And just bops their heads together.
Yeah. I love it. It literally made me chuckle. It's like, so far, like, Wrecker keeps having his moments that are like, it's kind of like an obvious thing. Like, I kind of knew what he was going to do, but when he did it, it still made me laugh out loud. Like, I was literally just like, ha, 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 ha.
Gotta love Wrecker.
Yeah. But yeah, so they, Hunter makes his way in after leaving the family. Wrecker comes in, the whole time Echo's trying to like release the maglock grip on the ship, and it's having a hard time, and the Wrecker comes in and just rips it off with his arms,
And they manage to escape, and
Omega joins them.
Yeah,
she sneaks in,
Omega and Hunter basically have this talk where she tells him,
I want to be with you.
Well, all right then.
He's like, yeah, your place is with us.
But yeah, so takes on this episode. Like I said, I like the basically showing what it means to transfer to the Empire, what that means to certain like individuals on the small scale, which I think these TV shows do a great job of showing the effects of the movies on everyday people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing this transition to the Empire, and I find that to be some of the more fascinating things. I actually think I like this episode more than the first episode.
It's interesting that you would like it more than the first episode. I definitely like the first episode.
This episode, you know what? This episode felt like a cartoon equivalent of Mandalorian in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a kind of Mandalorian episode of them arriving on a planet, having an issue to solving it, getting out. It's very much that sort of vein, and that gives me hope for what this series is going to be going forward, with some like overarching backstory, but like a lot of the time they're just going to be visiting places and helping out and seeing just like the little details of everyday life from different perspectives.
Yeah, I can see that. That's what I'm hoping to see out of the series. That I want to keep seeing more of like how this transition into the Empire affects all these different facets of the Empire. I mean, how people receive it. We're seeing the birth of the rebellion already, like Saw Gerrera's group going off in the first episode. That's the birth of that rebel squad. The Caleb Dune, who eventually becomes Caden, that's the birth of, him and Rebels. Like, we're seeing all these little, how the ties of how all these things stretch out into the future
over many years. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is interesting that with Star Wars, because Star Wars is always a looking back feeling a lot of times. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, they started in the middle and went backwards.
yeah, and
Everything for like over a decade, new content was stuff taking place before the events of New Hope.
yeah, which it's always interesting and kind of fun to have it. We started in the middle and then we went backwards, and now we've started going forward, and we're just filling in the timeline in between, right? We know that things happened in between. We know how it started and we know where it got to. But seeing all this stuff filled in and like all of these events and getting more color on them, in the different ways that they like to show it too, because I mean, like Rogue One, they display it in this like really gritty, like, you know, the sacrifice of people and all these things, and Rebels showing the kind of things that people have to go through. It's just, I really love it. And the Bad Batch is such a cool group to watch.
It's one of the things to be said most in favor of it is if you watch through the Clone Wars, you're gonna get an attachment to that voice, that character of the Jango clone.
Yeah.
Like, so these guys are already basically endeared to you. Like, you see them in the last season of the Clone Wars, but the clones in general are already characters that you're inclined to like, especially when they're given names. And so we're getting this interesting thing of having to now see the clones as enemies, but still follow these separate clones. And I think if watching the Clone Wars up into this, you're definitely on board to like these guys, like no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. But if I recall correctly from that last season of Clone Wars, you know, I think that they even like the kind of the way that we see the Bad Batch is that they're kind of like, they're like this rogue group and stuff. And like, they're like kind of cool, but not like quite as likable. And I feel like now maybe that we're seeing more of their perspective and everything. They're very likable. Like they're like clearly, you know, they're the Bad Batch. But
well, I think adding Echo to the group is putting Echo there for a fan of the Clone Wars is really your tie into. Yeah. And they have a good relation. Like by the time their arc ends, like Rex has a good relationship with them, and anyone that Rex trusts, you got to trust.
Yeah. Exactly. Rex. Oh, that was always my boy, man. In Clone Wars, like, I mean,
I hope he appears in this.
I would like to see him pop up, or I'd like to see them maybe join up with them and like trying to find the thing with the inhibitor chip, because we know, you know, for facts from Rebels that Rex and I can't remember who the other two were that kind of came with them. They all got rid of their inhibitor chips. So they found the way. So
well, isn't that established by the end of Clone Wars, because he's not executing Order 66, right? Because he joins up with Ahsoka, so he's not executing Order 66.
Yeah, like he does. I can't remember why or how they fixed it. You know, I sorry, it's been a little while since Clone Wars has come out. It's been more than a year or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
So I'm a little, you know, I can't remember. Post in the comments, you know, fix my silliness for not knowing. Olivia, I know you're gonna be watching, so help me out here.
Listening,
yeah, watching. Sorry, YouTube. Like I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. But yeah, so I mean, this series definitely excited to see where it continues to go.
You know, and this is the last comparison I'm going to make directly to Clone Wars. And one of the things that I think is going to have a strong something good about this show as compared to Clone Wars is that Clone Wars followed that the arc model of like in a season, instead of having one singular story the whole time, or like different, like one episode is this story, one episode is this story. Clone Wars had a lot of like, these 3 episodes are going to tell this story. Then these 3 episodes are going to tell this completely different story. Whereas the Bad Batch, it looks like we're just only going to be following this group the whole time, which I think is going to give it an advantage over the Clone Wars of really entrenching you into these specific characters. Because that's like Clone Wars works because it got as many seasons as it did. It allowed you to connect with all of these different people who weren't in every episode, but they had enough time to work their way in.
Yeah, they were reoccurring characters that kept coming back, and I was like, oh, look, there's Rex again. Oh, look, there's blah, blah. I mean, Echo, the fact that Echo is really, I mean, I always say that Clone Wars really started for me, like started being good at the beginning of season 3, I think it is.
It's
where you see that original clone training episode, and Echo is that one of those clones from that clone training episode. He's the only one I think that's left from all those clones. So it's really interesting to see him from like the earliest of Clone Wars is now still here with us in the Bad Batch.
In the Bad Batch.
In the Bad Batch. That's a bad batch right there.
But yeah, it's I'm excited about this show.
Yep.
All right. So are there anything specific about the show we want to tackle? Who's your favorite member of the Bad Batch?
I
think it's kind of a hard question, right?
It's so far they all have their, it's kind of like what you appeal to a lot of ways. But okay. We play D&D, and in a lot of ways, like this is like a D&D group, right? Like you have your like
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like you have your strong fighter. Like Echo so far has like kind of acted like when him trying to unlock the things is like acting like a rogue. Like I look at him like literally lock picking things.
Yeah.
Tech is like, I don't know how you fit him into specific roles, but he's
a wizard, or
he's kind of like he's your intelligence based character, so like an artificer, wizard, or something like that. Hunter is he's kind of like Wrecker's your barbarian, right?
Yes.
But Hunter is kind of like either your fighter or your
fighter.
Yeah, ranger. Ranger actually. Like what am I saying? And Crosshair would be like your fighter, like archer main kind of guy. And am I forgetting someone?
Omega,
yeah, she's not whatever. She's a child. She doesn't have level 1 yet.
She's a cleric.
Yeah, she doesn't have level 1 yet. Like, she might be. Yeah, that would be the closest thing if she ends up being force sensitive. But I think it might be basic, but I really like Hunter. I mean, it seems maybe it's like, oh, clearly you like the main leader protagonist guy, but I just do. He's
that sort
charming.
Of the Aragorn Ranger type.
Yeah, that appeals to me. So, what about you? Do you feel the same or?
It's one of those things where usually I can pick out a favorite pretty easily, and I guess within the confines of this show specifically, not yet. Because I think maybe these characters have more to show. Like Wrecker gives me vibes of like a Grog from Critical Role.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Lovable Oath. I definitely was going to say like he's kind of like my second place just because multiple times he does these things that just make me laugh, they make me smile and be like, oh, that's kind of funny.
It's the sort of things where it's like it feels obvious, but it's like, but it works with him. He makes it work.
Yep. Now, what I would like to say is that, what I really want to see is I'd like to see some of these episodes be a little focused on like individual. That's what
I was gonna get at. I want to, because so far we've only really gotten depth out of Hunter, and you can bring in the background of Echo, but we don't exactly know who Echo is at this point.
Yeah,
because he was gone for a while, and then when they find him again, he immediately joins the Bad Batch, and so we haven't seen him since he's joined the Bad Batch.
Yeah, like we see that sometimes I've even questioned him, like, what is his role within the Bad Batch? I mean, is he just like a computer interface? I mean, clearly, but clearly Tech almost does like the same thing. So I'd just like to see more. I mean, not to say like he's not just as valuable to the team or anything, but
I feel like right now him and Tech are kind of underserved in terms of specific character qualities or what their goals are.
Yeah,
because and to a certain extent, Wrecker too, we don't really know what their goals are. They're just kind of following Hunter, and I want to see them more fleshed out.
Yeah,
even Omega, her goal right now is I want to be with these people.
Yeah,
and that's sort of all that we're getting right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, but understandably, it's a show about all of them. So if we don't get as much on any singular person, I wouldn't begrudge Disney, but I think it would be good storytelling and good, like way to make a TV show to give us more of each guy.
Yeah. Like just like an episode where we get some in depth into what makes that person tick. Like an episode, maybe we get to learn more about Wrecker's stuffed bunny.
Yeah, or whatever it is, Plumbus, I guess. I don't
know. It looks like a bunny rabbit, but I guess I'm making an assumption.
Yeah,
because bunnies aren't real.
Bunnies aren't real in the Star Wars universe, Brian. It could be what is that one thing? The thing from Rebels. It's like the something cat, or not the cat one, because there's like a lion looking one, but then there's just like this dumb ugly looking thingy I don't like. And I was like, Disney trying to make things they can sell again, like they've always have.
We'll just say it's a porg.
Yeah. Plumbus.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anything else we want to cover? Well, how do you feel about Omega?
Okay. I will say, totally fine character. Get why she's there and stuff. Doesn't appeal to me. Just a me specific thing. IMO, in my opinion.
Is it just, do Star Wars TV shows have to have some child character like front and center? Like, because like the first one being Clone Wars, with, I get like Ahsoka's less of a child, but like at the beginning she is a like young.
I think it's
and then Rebels follows a main character being a kid, and then Mandalorian has a little baby in it, and now we have putting a kid in there. Is it just to appeal to a child audience better?
I definitely think so, because Rebels was on Disney XD, right?
Yeah,
which is literally like the slightly teenager-ish, Disney version, and so they have a main character that's a teenager, and I think his role works well for their kind of target audience.
And I think that's the original role that Ahsoka played too. To like from a like creating a TV show perspective, you want to put in a character that young people can relate to, and you don't want the young people relating to Darth Vader.
Yeah, precisely. And so I think here in this show, I mean, we know the Bad Batch is still appealing to adults, like certainly has, mature themes and things that I, as, an adult, can enjoy. But yeah, I think they're putting a younger kid in there so we can capture that audience. So the audience can see themselves in her and feel more a part of it. Like, I'm an adult and I can be like, yeah, cool, I wish I was like Hunter, and kids can feel that way too.
Yeah.
But you can really see yourself in a kid.
I could be a kid and part of the Bad Batch. Oh, wow.
Exactly. Like, that's kind of the perfect thing. Like, you can be, even if you're a young kid, you could be part of this cool group and stuff if you're just good and kind and things like that. So I think she'll serve more to the story, obviously, but I definitely think that's
I think there's something to be revealed about her. I like the idea of her being Force sensitive, though I'm not necessarily going to take that bet, because we need to, I want to see where this translates into the effects of the Star Wars universe going forward. Or is this just a singular story? It's not going to have rippling effects. But if there is no rippling effects, then I think that takes away the chances of her being Force sensitive.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she'll end up also being part of Luke Skywalker's academy. Maybe Luke Skywalker will show up to come pick her up later after like murdering a million super battle droids and stuff.
Well, she'll be very old by then.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess she'll already be whatever by then. So yeah, I don't know. Well, do you have any other points?
Yeah, I think that this show, we're not going to be able to talk on it as much as we were with Falcon and WandaVision in general. Like, this is 2 episodes that we're covering, and I think we're gonna this is gonna be a shorter show in general.
The thing is, I will say that because Star Wars is such like an interconnected universe, I think we'll have a decent amount to talk about, just because it's like, even as we've already said now, like, oh, we're looking at how the Empire affects this. Oh, look, Caleb do, like, there's so many little things, that I think that might end up connecting. But I think past the first episode, which had so much in it, it's going to be perhaps a lot less to, be able to discuss. So
yeah, that's just the thought I'm thinking going forward. Though, in looking back, like when we talked about WandaVision, we did 2 episodes, and that wasn't a very long episode because those first few episodes didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
But it developed more as it went on. There was more to explore, more of the characters. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
To see these characters become characters.
Yep.
All right, but I think that's going to be it for this one.
Yeah. So until next time, folks, this has been Robert
and Ryan.
Have a good one.
Yep.